I look at quality, price, performance at the end. I would, I'm in business because I am able to sell something that is of a high quality, and it has a stylistic preference where I want the wines to be, and that's why I started to work with these wines. And I thoroughly believe in a lot of these producers and the history behind it, and it represents an incredible value. Not only value, but I would say value is second, quality first. We have an incredible history here of winemaking, covering the entire region from from Dalmatian coast, being it's one of the oldest winemaking regions in the world. The first vines in Europe were planted in some of these places, and we are always been just a second. We have always been making wine, and it is a place where with a lot of history. So I would say, just a second, I have a thing here. There we go. Gallery, you can see everybody here. I think that for us, the biggest factor was a communism factor in the last 50 years. In a lot of these countries, they couldn't produce high quality domain wines, and it was blocked by the government of something that it just couldn't be privately owned. So everybody sold wines to big cooperatives, and the tradition behind it was that many domains were making wines, and in the entire 40-50 years were lost. In the 1990, we were gotten back to like, for instance, just the Slovenia, Croatia, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Hungary. I mean, huge territories that they were basically not able to produce artisanal products, right? So we basically, and after the fall of communism, got that back, and producers were able to go back to domain, take charge of making wine. That's why you see such an increase of these wines coming back to the market. And in a sense, this was good because a lot of wineries didn't have a chance to go the modern way. So a lot of traditions were kept, and a lot of this like modern wood or modern Bordeaux techniques were not implied heavily. And like in Spain, you had this phenomenon of using, like just buying massive amounts of new equipment and cooling equipment, ACs, all sorts of macerators, expensive, and then realizing that you don't really need all of that, to produce wines that we want to drink today. So we were lucky in that sense, and that we didn't have a lot of history that was a lot of tradition that we were tied to. So in that sense, that we had to have dogmatics, how to make something. I think it's very special to have cool winemaking regions at this time, where you are just taking into contrast, looking at France, looking at our book, coming up with white wines that are fresh, exciting, coming from a fascinating terroirs that speak of identity. It's a challenge, and the regions like Austria, regions like Slovakia, Slovenia, Czech Republic, they have opened up an incredible cool climate territory for the market that you would have to reach out traditionally to Loire Valley or to Burgundy, and that's
really shifting now.
So this, and also these wine making regions were actually cooler enough that the climatic change has helped also a little bit to bring these wines to the points where it was actually easier to work for a lot of these farmers, and then and we see a lot of changes happening in wine. So a lot of people being more confident to work on in the viticulture. So, we have some of the most fascinating terroir. The entire path of, I would say, between, let's say, Austria, let's say just taking the lower Austria, covered all with Pannonian Sea, the Alps, and many mountain ranges going all the way down to Croatia, created this with Adriatic Sea pushing in the side, on the back, created this incredible condensed tectonic plates that were pushing one to another, and created this incredibly diverse terroir with very highly minerally structured soil. I really believe that you have some of the most unbelievable terroir in this part of the world that rivals easily Burgundy, that easily rivals some of the great places in France, in the northern Rhone, etc. It just was never used. There was no tradition how to discover and what to grow in certain places because of this communist aspect that people were stopping research, and everything was done in terms of technicality, what's easier rather than what's quality. There are some ways how to do it. Some people that wanted to do it, and they were commissioned for that, but there was only a few percent. So we see an amazing change happening in the last 25-30 years in the vines being planted back on those parcels that were known for presenting quality rather than quantity, and now this is what you see very quickly coming through. You also have to cultivate the land in order to start producing results, and now we are there, up there with with the French, up there with a lot of great producers around the world. And if you go to Collio, for instance, you said earlier, when you speak to the the original groups of like the Gravners and those guys, they will tell you first that what's to them we are just looking at Italy's whites, how different in appreciations are towards the reds. If you look at Barolo prices, and if you say Collio being the primary wine region for white wine of Italy, it is unbelievable price point difference for top whites, for instance, from Dario Primčić, or top reds from Giuseppe Rinaldi, which cost $300, $400, $500 retail, for the best Italian whites from the one of the world's leading countries. Those wines still cost retail $50-$60. You cannot even so it also is an incredible value. While we say it can be expensive, but it's really just a fraction of the price what they are in in other places. So this is so we can maybe pick a producer or something that did you guys maybe want to discuss more, so we can focus a little bit more.
Yeah. We're talking about such a broad region here that it might make sense to sort of look at it geographically and work our way across, because so maybe starting in Croatia, maybe a little bit Slovenia. So in Croatia, we definitely want to hear about your newest project.
Sure.
Let's see, I pulled up some lists of producers, but at Walden, they've pretty much carried a little bit of everything across the book. But going forward, I guess we're looking also for some direction from you in what inventory will be most available to us, because the quantities are so low. And so
yeah, I mean, I honestly have most of wines in stock right now. I was really aggressively buying, and the markets are now like it's January, in a few months, like we have everything, so we can really talk like whatever you guys like, most likely I will have. So
that's really good to know.
It's a good time to and we have a lot of price points, different price points, and a lot of wines in the basic price points. So
but let's talk about a couple producers from each country then.
Sure. So let's start with what I'm doing here at Vinas Mora. So basically, with I have this is an extremely famous terroir, not only for Croatia but for the entire Yugoslavia, for the entire Balkan, Central European region. It was known. Even in communism, people were exporting wines from my village called Primošten, and these wines. I don't know if you've ever seen the pictures from that. I don't know how. I'm really bad with. I don't know if you've seen the vineyards of Primošten vineyards that are all grown on. The vines are all planted on these pebble rocks. If you pull them up online. It's an extremely important factor to see those vines. It is maybe few places on this planet have vineyards like this, where we are practically not growing anything on soil. There is literally, we are producing liquid stone, So the wines speaks for themselves. And I was given this opportunity to take over a really large cooperative. Large cooperative role in this area, and during coronavirus, I was there, with my friend, the character partner of Nico Dukan, and we were there, and I already had another winery, and I already imported one producer, and I told this guy, so listen, this is some of the greatest wines, possibly that you could make on this planet. If French or Italians had these vineyards, and I showed them from Frank Cornelissen to Evan Lewandowski to a lot of these guys. When I showed pictures of these vines, people were saying to me, what can I do to buy vines here? How do we make a wine here? Just by looking at the picture, people were wanting to come and I said, I would be crazy not to take this. And I didn't have the opportunity because I already have another winery in the north with my dad, and I was trying to expand on that. So I was saying to my friend Marino, who makes these other Bibich wines, I said, we need to make single vineyard wines. We are at the point where we have a place like Northern Rhone with Cornas, Kodroti type of wines, and we need to designate it. We need to make something. We cannot just blend everything into one wine and then sell it to the market. We need to talk this story, because something that has been done for generations before. Old people always talk about it. The wines are vastly different from one terroir to another. And when I was there, I was researching all that. I did like 5 to 1,000 kilometers on a bike, going through all the vines and researching every single vineyard and tasting with all these old people and realizing what was like, what was one thing, what was another thing, who's working good, who's working bad, and to my standards, working good, I'm saying. But then I could then buy, and this opportunity came that this winery stepped out of this large cooperative that was making these wines for 50 years, and they said to me, we have to take the role of taking this position of buying for cooperative, because otherwise all the growers will lose the vintage, and most likely they were most of them cutting vines after this year. So I didn't know what to do. I said, okay, I have to go and help them, and it was supposed to be a little bit. I put up a sign all over our villages and in the vineyards and where the people's houses were. 120 people called me, and said to me, okay. So I ended up buying for so much, and I made I made promises to everybody that I found that had the right material, and I basically started a winery, on a much larger scale, which I was very happy to do at the end, because it was a historic thing that we've done. And I decided that I will do what needed to be done, just like every wine region needs to deserve this terroir, like a serious wine region. I decided to vinify everything by territory and to do it very seriously. And then I decided to make one wine that was a kind of like a multi-terroir wine, a wine of a tradition of what was done many decades before. I would say modernity in wine comes in, and this is how Barba was born. And it's also coming from the aspect of what I make in my other winery with Podrum Franjo for Albix. I don't know if you ever tried that, but it's a co-ferment of all the wines, which is coming from a very large tradition of Styrian wines in the north. So,
okay. So let me stop you just for 1 second to get everyone up to speed. So Vinos Mora, everyone, is coming. It's arriving next week. And what Kreso was talking about is the Barba, which is a red blend. Or it's a co-fermentation of red and white, isn't it?
Red and white, yeah. Red and
white. The wine that you just mentioned, the Obix from Podrum Franjo. Podrum Franjo is your other winery. That was, you started with your father originally. Yes. That we've had in the past, but it's sold out. I think it's been a while since we had it. Yeah. Anyway, so there, go on.
So when I came to Vinos Mora, when I took over, literally I came there the first day. I was like, oh my God, we have nothing but red wine. I'm going to put all my money into this. We're going to have to vinify everything by single terroir. Nobody's ever done this before. And it's going to be expensive. We pay, I don't know if you've seen those wines, we pay €3 per kilo of wine. You know, this is what some bottles cost at an import level. And it's extremely low yield. It's incredibly difficult to farm. And I said to myself, we need to come up with a wine that is going to be the kind of like the Susukaro of Cornelissen. We need to have something that comes at a price point that's available for everybody, and it also has some sort of tradition. So I said to myself, I have to make the Albix of the South, you know. So I did that, and it was just a wonderful idea. It really showed it when you open it, when you drink it, it really drinks like the Mediterranean. It really has the signature of the area. To me, when you come to the place, the smell of the place, the garrigue and all these things are really what you drink in this wine. And it's a wonderful representation, kind of like similar to, let's say, what, you know, Langhe to Barolo is like. We are, you know, I'm using all the Langhe grapes except Nebbiolo for this, which are Clavina, Lacin for reds, David Marastina for white, and then for my territorial wines are only Bibich vineyards from single plots. So that is that, and that is all vinified in polyethylene tanks. You know, from 6 hours to 3-day maceration. And then I wanted something really fresh to be energetic. When you taste the wine, you will see what I'm talking about. The wine is an absolute hit. I cannot tell you that, you know, we have sold the wines in 16 countries around the world with not any importers, only top importers from everywhere. People have, like, I couldn't believe, you know, in 3 months we sold out almost 30,000 bottles of these wines, which are, you know, and not only Barba, like I was sold out of my first crew, which is like €14, you know, and that was the first wine that sold out. And like I'm talking about France, you know, Italy, very difficult markets to sell the wines, Croatian wines to. They have reordered since, and like I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening, you know. So it's an enormous success. People are really like we're called, and like people tasted the wines, and I get daily emails from winemakers from all over, you know, and being like, I can't believe, you know, how good these wines were. And I'm really simply, my one answer is like, I really wanted to frame these vineyards, put them in a frame, and not do much except for making this terroir shine, and really work on its primaries and work on that to be the factor. There's very minimal. Barba and Andres are very personal wines for me, because I wanted them to. They are very. I would say. You know, my like personal wines would be the right ways, because I had to create them, because it's something that it would have been done, but like all the other vineyards are made in this fashion of just all the fermentations are the same, all the macerations are the same, all the oak program is the same, 30% in only, and so you only taste terroir one next to another.
Will you tell us about the names of those two wines and the labels also?
Sure. Mm-hmm. So basically, I'll go to common, which you don't have yet, but just the common line is the common 1, 2, 3, which means stones. It means because this is what you see in the pictures. We really make the wines are, to me, liquid stone, and they are coming from these rocks that you know, it's just impossible to farm. And this is the common line. Andres, I don't know if you're getting that, but Andres is the first terroir. So basically, those are terroir wines, and they really represent the place. And they have these specific vinifications each year. And Barba, the picture on Barba on that label, Barba means an old man, an uncle, an elderly person. And to me, this is a concept of tradition. It is a concept of a man that puts all of these things together. It is, you need the man in the terroir. You need that concept of a human factor. So on the picture is a very dear friend of mine, my neighbor, who is one of the old guys that keep pushing these vines and making these wines for many years. He only makes 300-400 liter of wine, and I make 90,000 bottles, and I still buy pretty much all of his wine for the house because it presents history to me. And he has the oldest vineyards in this rocky mountainous area. Primorsten is a place. Imagine living there 40 years ago. There was no electricity. There's no place to be able to farm anything. People lived off of these vineyards. They would have to get up 2-3 o'clock in the morning and go in some of these vines with a donkey, not even horses, and to go and spend 4 or 5 hours to get there with very little food, with barely anything, to have any kind of tomato or they didn't have sheep or cows, anything that they could produce, so they could only live off the sea and off those vines. Extremely poor. So and then being so poor, the soil and the vines give you even less, So it was very, very difficult life. So for these guys to be there and go and continue for them to still be here today, and it was an incredible honor for me to take over this. And these guys were literally, people came to me, people from 85, 90 years old. They came to me crying when I was taking this over, and when I gave them money, they said, you don't know what you did for us. So amazing thing for me and for all of us to continue. And for once in life that these wines went to the world on the first vintage. We've never seen anything like this in the history of Croatia, for the wines to go to so many markets, to be sold on such high regard, and no questions asked. So incredible success with Vinas Mora and for this terroir. Yeah. So that will be that. We have another winemaker here who is my partner. It's Marinov. I don't know if you guys bought those wines. Marinov Bibich has a yellow label.
Yeah, we have in the past, but the last vintage we had was 2017.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that was an amazing vintage. So this is a part of, so he's a professor in school, and he started this whole thing with me, and I started with him. I found him on the side of the road selling plastic bottles, and it took me 2 years to realize who he was, because I got a plastic bottle from somebody, and the wine was just amazing. And then I realized he's my neighbor. I said, I can't believe you made this. Said, I make it for blah blah for myself. I said, then I went to his winery, and I bought the whole winery basically, and I had somebody in London make the labels for him and the wines, But he's just off-hands winemaker, and he partnered now with me, and we are doing together this whole Vinas Mora project. But his wines are also incredible. He comes from he has vineyards in one of the Grand Crus, and but very young vines, where my vines are quite older, and for different crus. So just to give a little spiel about Andrejs. So I talked to you about Barba. Andrejs is a vineyard 250 meter above sea level that is coming just outside of my village. So relative to Barolo, this would be or Barbaresco, this would be a cru in Langhe, or like a Doliani or something like that, if I can relate to something to you like that. So it's grown on this amazing terroir that was also pebble rocks, but the rocks were crushed about 30 years ago to have a little bit more accessibility to work there, and to go with at least to go with a tractor to go through the vines, and at least to be able to work a little bit more with machines. All manual harvest, though everything is done organically, and very good terroir. So I wanted this territory for me. It's a little bit more giving because the vines are trained, and the wines have more power. Where in the wines in the stones are all about elegance, minerality, much more to me. They speak to me much more in relative to more Pinot Noir-esque rather than heavy, more those darker notes that you find in maybe darker fruit character. And I wanted that wine to be lifted a little bit more, to be in line with other wines, not to take over, because I like big wines, but I didn't want my first wine to be bigger or structured than the others. So I vinified that 30%. I vinified as rosé on 6 hours on skins, and that was just beautiful juice. And then that gets blended to the other wines that are 4 days on skins, and just like the rest of the wines goes in 30% of oak program. It ended up being just an amazing combination, and it works wonderful. It's this fluidity in the wine is beautiful, and the wine that this will be every year for Andres. This will be the principle. So that's we can say now we covered like this Dalmatian coast. I don't know if you're getting any Bibich wines there.
Yeah, we have in the past, but I'm not sure going forward. We'll have to. But that's the other one.
We have the Bibich wines now. Alen Bibich is really like the most famous winemaker in Croatia, I would say. He has also changed tremendously in the last 6 years. He's gone like really radical, like going towards like very natural wine style. And we have incredible values from him. We have like a $9 wine from him now, or a $10 wine from him. So, for a winemaker of that scale or that like quality to produce a wine and that price point, you can, rest assured the wines are fantastic. Orange wine and like inexpensive. So ask Tony, like I'm sure she can send you some samples, and we can then catch up on that. But that's and the wines of these wines are in stock. So they're in stock year round. So if you want to cover some Croatia at like entry level, this is the way to go, with some of this. It's very, very good. You can definitely, this is the wine I want for all the markets to do well with that.
Okay. Oh, that particular wine, the inexpensive one?
Yeah, the inexpensive wine, like he makes a rosé that's really good. Like he's how do
you say the name of that? With the CRNO, or do you say Sir?
Exactly. Yes.
CRNO?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What does that stand for?
It means like it's tinto. Like we call our wines, we call the red wines black in Croatia. We don't call them red. So you have, when you say, we drink a wine, we don't say we want a black wine, not a red, like tinto, right? So it's just a red basically for us. Yeah.
Okay.
So what else do you guys have in the book that I can maybe talk to you about?
Well, sticking in Croatia for just a minute. So can you give us a little bit of like information about Podrum Franjo? We do have some of that in stock. We have the red mousse.
Okay, great. So Podrum Franjo.
And also Obix Rosé.
Okay, wonderful. So Podrum Franjo, my dad was, he's been making wines when he was working in his company just like for himself and for his friends, and that they were conventionally made, but they're coming from great vineyards. And I was like, so I wish we could do something better with this, but I didn't have the time. And then he retired, and I was like, okay, listen, I'll help you make the wines. I'll do it for you, and we can sell them. Now you can, because he was bored, and I was like, now you have another job, and he was totally into it. So we did it, and so basically, Podrum Franjo are multi-terroir wines. It's a very different cellar. I approach these wines per cuvée. That Albix is always Albix, Mousse is always Mousse, tasting like it. Where in Vinas Mora is all territory only, and it's very much like kind of like champagne aspect, like how they blend the wines. I really want. It does so much work with these wines because I really want them to taste in balance every year. I want them to be because there are different parcels in this, and there are many grapes involved in making Albix. So Albix is I would say 60% Slovenian Styrian wine, and 40% or 30% wine from Plješivica, which we have, where the vineyards in just around Zagreb hills in Croatia. So Styria, this very hilly region where Keltis is also, it's a continuation of Austrian Styria with these rolling hills going down with a pock soil. I mean, fascinating wine region. Absolutely fascinating. Everything from Styria is just absolute rock star wines. You know, that if you do them right, the wines are shining. They are just like, it's the most like winemaking region, you know, standards, you know, possible. And it's just, to me, very, very vinous wine place. So we have these grapes called Blauer Kulner, and which is the dominant wine in the dominant grape in Albix, which is a red varietal, a light strawberry, raspberry flavor. It is all about elegance, and it was traditionally replanted by Blau Frankish, which is a lot more tannin, powerful wine, and it's Blauer Kulner. It's by far superior wine than this, and I use that. I'm lucky to have some holdings of that, and then part of there's about I would say 70% of the red side is Blauer Kulner, 30% is Blau Frankish. The rest of the 30% of the wine is wines that are the vines I have in Plješivica, which are these incredible old vineyards, 40 and up to 120-year-old vines, all grown on sticks. So in a very old method. So because of biodiversity was needed before the sprayings were done, before any kind of knowledge, you know, or chemistry was involved. So you would have two vines of one variety, two vines another variety, two vines of a third variety, and rolling down the hill like that. So these are old Croatian varietals. About 13 of them. I mean, I can name you them all, but it doesn't make any sense. It's really like, you know.
We won't be able to remember. It's okay. Don't name them.
Yeah. So a part of that is going into this, with a part of Chardonnay, a small part of Chardonnay and Pinot Gris. Even now, I'm starting to change the style of Podrum Franjo, because I really want to. I was starting with the only stainless steel, with like this easy kind of going, kind of primary wines, but I am changing that. Because this terroir really needs to be uplifted. So everything now, even the Albix will be aged in Albix. Even this vintage you have has some aging in wood and like different management of the lees. So you can see the wines are changed a little bit. And Moose, so basically Albix is made, the reds are separately fermented, the whites are separately fermented, all Pinot Gris and the old varietals are separately fermented, and then blended to taste, to get this kind of like Albix style, you know, which is kind of more aromatic. There's this really old aromatic varietals that are in there that I keep separately. So I really try to get this Albix tuned in for each vintage that is specifically Albix style. Moose, on the other hand, it is red wine, and I'm talking red wine not only because it has red grapes, but it's red wine made from white grapes as well. So I use Pinot Gris here, which is very, very red. I use it, I macerate for about 7 days, and I make red wine from it. And it has a lot more power and body than the red grapes. And that is blended. So Blauer Kulner, Blauer Frankish, about 85-90%. And then about 7% is Pinot Gris that I keep in a special barrel for this. That is really red, powerful Pinot Gris. And it gives you this wonderful texture and length, and more of like almost more of a red wine character in wine as a whole. and I have 3% or 2% of this of a very, very old Isabella grapes, which is kind of like a variation of Concord. I have a 140-year-old vineyard of Concord, these Isabella grapes that are growing around the house, and they're never pruned. They're just extremely wild, and they produce this amazing, basically extract of forest strawberries that I separately vinify, and then I put in mousse at the end. So that is mousse, and mousse sees an élevage of over a year in wooden barrels, so 500 liters.
Okay, these two wines are very complex because of this large number of grape varieties and also the large number of sources. And so, it's for us to take them out into the market. It's more about, I think, because we can't talk region, we're talking several different regions here. We can't really talk climate or terroir because it's so blended. So give us a little insight into, you've already done this a little bit, but what's your vision for each of these wines so that we can take that out and explain to a buyer, this is the vision behind this wine. This is why the winemaker made these choices.
Well, I wanted, I definitely, first, I believe, in, like I said earlier, my preference in the wine is really here for the wines to be tasting great, So having a variety of colors in the cellar, my approach to making wine in Podrum Franjo is a wide palette of options, and then blending them together basically like a champagne concept, So to make this beautiful balance in wine. These are very petite wines. We are talking about like potential 10.5, 11 point alcohol at ripeness. So I want, so each year I'm trying to make a wine that is complex, long, and interesting with grapes like that. People will tell you you're crazy to do something like that. So I want. So that's my primary factor, and finding the style for that wine, for that kind of wine to work, because it can very easily be simple and boring. So for me. Also, there is a lot of tradition. Albix, you can say that this is something that I really wanted to do. Albix is, you can Google that. It's a wine that is, it's a variational wine that is called Cviček in Slovenia. It's the most consumed wine in the country. It is by far. And it's a wonderful, simple wine, but it's all conventionally made, and every single, like if your dad is like 70 years old and lives in our area, he definitely has a vineyard somewhere, small vineyard, and he makes that, So it's like everybody makes that so it's a blend of white and red, and the whole country drinks that. And it's about 10.5 alcohol, and it's like the first hipster wine in the history of the world, probably. But so for us, it's just a wine, and it's it's not natural or anything. So I wanted to make a real Cviček. I wanted to make a wine that is like the thing that they've been making for years, but make it really natural, and to make it interesting and much more complex. I macerate the whites and the reds. So in Cviček, they use red, Blauerkölner, Blaufränkisch, the block malolactic, and for whites, the same thing, the block malolactic, acidity, high, fruity, fruity simple wine. For me, for a long fermentation, Asian wood, and maceration on both sides. So that's why the wine is has this wonderful aromatics and all these things. It's absolutely that wine is, there's a trace of long history in that, but the wines were never made like this. When you go into some people's homes, you would see, sometimes you would find a wine that is good, but very, very rarely you would see a wine made this way. So nobody ever macerated. I've never had anything like this. Is the first time that anybody done that. So basically, then to continue a little bit more to connect this with Keltis. I don't know if you work with them.
Yeah, we should talk about them because we're in the same region, right?
So that's just so my vineyards are coming. The vineyards that I that I get for Blauer Kulner for the base of Albics are coming from there. So Keltis, they're very good friends of mine. I grew up in that place, in that region, and they have helped me with the first vintage with like barrels and stuff like that, and like, you know, gave me some advice. And then I made the first wines, and then they asked me, they were fascinated by those wines, the Albics and Hinuk and, you know, the Skunik wines. They were like, oh my God, like we love this. Like, how do we do this? So basically they asked me to make the Zahn line for them. The Zahn white and red. I did those wines. I created those wines for them. I went into the cellar and I helped them design that, and that's how that was born. You know, so it is a similar concept, but very different. You know, the wines are very different. They use muscat and things like that. I worked with like what we've had in the cellar, and we wanted to create a entry level wine from Styria, the way the tradition was always there. These wines were always like that. You know, so. And that became an amazing success for the winery and really brought the winery to a whole different level. You know, like we do tremendous amount of sales with Keltis and especially the Zahn wines.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those are good for us. Before we leave Croatia, I have to ask you one question, and that is just about the Kotavina wines, because we've carried those in the past, and we have an interruption right now because the price changed a lot. Did something change at the winery to make the price change?
You know, I mean, did it change a lot? I think it went up like $2 or something like.
I don't know. It was something kind of significant to take it up a couple price points in our.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know. Look, I'll be honest with you. Like, I made, you know, that's another wine I made first. First vintage. It was, so I help a lot of people around my, you know, like this kid was a bartender in my village, and he was listening. I was there with a laptop and I didn't have internet in my apartment, so I was going to this bar all the time and drink gin tonics and like talk to, you know, people and like do business, you know, and then he listened to me. I said like, oh, I listened to you about talking about wine all the time. Like I make wine. I have 6 hectares of vineyards, and they're all organic, you know, and I make wine, you know, like I'd like you to come and try it. And I said, okay, sure. So he brought the wine. The wine was bad, you know, like bad. I mean, just like yeasted, you know, simple, shitty wine, you know. But then he told me where he was, and I realized, oh shit, this guy is in this like amazing area. And I, you know, like when he told me where, like I realized a lot of people were sourcing from him, a lot of really amazing producers, and from what they were sourcing from, they were putting them in their top wines. They were selling, like literally, you know, they would sell wines for about 50 euros export from his vineyards, you know. So I'm like, oh yeah, this guy's, I know who he is. So I said to him, listen, he's like, how can, you know, he was like, can you help me? I said, sure, I can help you. You do what I tell you. And I don't have time to go there because I have so many things going on. But I'm gonna come and see what you have in the winery and the vineyards, and I'm gonna tell you what to do over the phone. And you do and listen to me. And if you do what I tell you, you're probably we'll make a simple wine, and you're probably gonna end up with wine that I can buy. And if it's bad, I'll still buy it, you know. And I'll still buy it, and I'll make it. I'll sell it in my village for house wine, whatever. So that was that, and the wine came out and it was very good. He listened to what I said, and you know, he was very shy in the beginning, and that was it. And but the reality of this is, you know, Croatia, like every other country, is you know, the fact that it's coming from Croatia, it's not the fact that it is cheap. You know, like it is something that is unsustainable. He lives in a area where it is very windy, you know, rocky soil. I mean, top world-class material, you know. So for me to belittle this guy and like say to him, you know, like what am I gonna pay you? Like I was paying him, I don't know, 6 euros. Now I'm paying him 7 euros. You know, I lifted the price for €1 up, you know. So that is it. And I think he deserves it because we make, he puts all the amazing Merlot grapes and amazing Lassin and all these things into one cuvee, and he wanted to make something in oak. I said, keep it simple. I'll pay you $1 more, and we'll close the story. But the wines are very good, you know. Like I can't, and I want him to be serious. And I think, like, you know, I think sometimes it helps the wine to be at a price point that people can understand and not cheap. So he That's about it. He makes an orange wine also from this very old vineyards that he has that are about 80 years old. And I'm asking €7 for that. What am I?
Is that one the Baba Manda?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I cannot, like where the rest of the people are like making top wines that sell for like 40, 50 euros from his grapes, So to be organic and work everything, like the way he does, I'm trying to support him, and I'm trying to put people back to the land, like the point of like my wines, it's like, I want to give back to these people. I want to give people a chance that they can farm. I want to give them jobs. I want to give them opportunities. They're not just doing stupid tourist jobs and like, renting apartments and like living, basically in their grandparents' houses over the summer, because that's the only way how to make money. We are at one of the places that it could potentially make one of the best wines around. I think, like when I see reactions from my colleagues or from amazing producers, when I taste the wines, they're like, this is it. I shouldn't be cheaper than, my common wine shouldn't be cheaper than somebody else's wine coming from this kind of terroir, So, and I pay top dollar for it as well, So this is the fact, like the fact that it's coming from somewhere like Croatia or Czech Republic, that doesn't mean that it's. I think it's still incredible value relative to like French wines from the northern Rhone or French, Burgundy. I think it still presents an incredible value where some of these wines are unattainable, but it doesn't have to be cheap. No,
Right.
Yeah. But we have cheaper wines. We do have, so there are parts of that. So just to explain a little bit.
Yeah. Okay. So moving out of Croatia, would you want to call out anyone or actually, sorry, before we move out of Croatia, I have to ask about something that we've carried pretty consistently in the past. We're out of it right now, everyone, but I don't know how to say this honestly, but it's the winery that's called Vicencio. And then it's
that's one. This is, oh my God, this is sad. This is another crazy story, So this guy is amazing winemaker. He may be one of the most talented people I've ever met. He was a winemaker in Alto Adige, in Letrari, which is a large producer of very famous sparkling estate and making really good red wines. And he moved to Croatia about 15, 20 years ago and started his own estate. And he's totally hippie. I mean, not hippie like that mentality. He's just like, it took me 5 times on a boat to go over there. I spent enormous amount of time and money to try to buy his wines. And I've been drinking them for 12 years. He would never even say hello to me, when I would go there, and like he has this little restaurant, and like he knew that I was coming, like, and then I got pissed and I never wanted to see him again, and still somehow ended up buying his wines, and then we became friends, and so his whole thing is like he doesn't really want to sell wine. He sells wines to like on his island, and when I came to his winery, I tasted the wines, and he couldn't believe when I walked in. I said the wines were good because he only got criticism. And at some point when I was leaving, I was looking at this large tank that he didn't show me, and I said, like, what is that? And that was that Island Red. And he was like, oh, I sell this to people on the beach. And he, I was like, what? I tasted the wine. I said, unbelievable. So I said, like, I'm going to buy everything you have. And he literally thought he got rich, when I paid him first time. So like he got like 20,000 euros, and then his second time he got like more, and he never saw that kind of money, and like he's like, oh, I'm not gonna sell wines anymore. I'm gonna, he basically now signed himself out of the country. He's not a Croatian citizen anymore. He doesn't want to pay taxes, and he doesn't want to sell wines as a part of the tax system. So I'm not basically working with him anymore. So he's just like, he made these wines with a fuck off like this. They all have fuck off labels. And that's it. And he has a big statement out on the other back and explaining why he did that. So that's it. But I have, he still hopes that I will buy his wines legally. Yes.
I have a question. So we just sold the last of the Island Red last night. Are we done? Are you not buying his wines anymore?
I mean, I don't think, he still hopes with Domaine Bibich, he's trying to sell him the juice, and then like he would bottle it in his winery, so he wouldn't pay, so he would be a part of the system. I don't, and he's trying to sell it to my winery. I'm like, I don't want to do it. You know, I already made this vintage. I consulted on a wine and made a wine with somebody who has an amazing winery, organic. This is the thing about Croatia. You have so many people that are organic and they're making classic conventional wines, with like 70 parts per million sulfur. And a lot of these guys that come to me like, oh my God, like I can't believe, like, how do you sell all these wines? And then like we have discussions and things like that. So this year, these guys, they have this fantastic vineyards came to me, and I went to the winery and I tasted some of the wines, and I said, look, this guy is like, I need an island red, replacement, So we basically, it's not an island wine, but it's going to be coastal red. And I have, we made this wine together, and it's going to be priced the same or maybe even cheaper, and it's tasting fantastic, So I told him already, like, look, man, I don't care. Like, if you don't want to sell me wine, it's fine. I already have a replacement. So you guys will have a replacement with basically the same label, done. Plavac Mali.
We have quite a following.
Yeah, I know. It's
past
fantastic.
6 months, some glass pours and some retail shops.
Yeah, it's fantastic. He is. Look, I don't know if you know the other wines. If you did you buy the other wines from him? The Plavac and Noni.
The rosé?
No, the Plavac, the top wines.
Sorry, I can't remember.
I don't recall seeing them.
We have only carried the Island Red and Island Rosé.
Yeah. Well, the other wines are really like what it's about. The other wines are, maybe they're the best Plavac wines in the entire country. And, it's a type of wine I bring to Dario Primčić, and he goes like, Dario never says anything is good. He's like, this is unbelievable, and the wines cost here in New York, $20-something. Plavac Mali aged for 4 years in wood. They're like in the line of like really big Barolo or like top Bordeaux, like expensive wine. They taste like very for the future. Yeah, check. They're very classic, like big. I'll just tell you how natural he is. He never sprayed once these vineyards in the entire year, never one time. So. And the only time, and I think there's zero sulfur in the wines as well. Maybe there's like a little bit before the bottling, but that's it. Like zero spraying. He's extremely radical. So amazing wine, very inexpensive. I basically, when I got his first invoice, so he sent me an invoice, and he was. He was going down to the village all the time, like asking, like telling people how I came there, and they're like, "Oh, this guy's scamming you," like there's nobody gonna buy wines from you like that. And he sent me an invoice, and I sent him back the invoice. We corrected pricing. I deleted his pricing and raised all the prices. And said, like, here you go. This is how you sell wine for this price. She wanted the wines to be like 2.5 euros.
Yeah. Huh. That is interesting. You said that's not how the wine economy works.
That's
So I know I don't want to take too much of your time. I don't know how much you have for us.
I have more. It's more.
Okay. I do want to keep going then, because I feel like there's a lot of ground to cover, like literally a lot of territory to cover. So I was thinking, do you want to move into maybe Slovakia? Like
Sure.
we've carried Slobodné.
Yeah, sure. Slobodné is. Slobodné is
75. Yeah. So.
Yeah, Slobodné is a good winery to talk, because they have quantity on these wines, and they're very they're very chic wines. They're in style, I would say. These wines are.
Before you get into the producer, can you sort of give us some impressions about, since we're moving geographically into a totally different country here, different, everything. Can you give us a little bit of just broader information about just, Slovakia in general, about selling these wines?
Slovakia, just like it used to be part of Czechoslovakia, and like the big heritage in Czechoslovakia were wines from Moravia, and they've had winemaking tradition just as well as any country before communism, part of the Austro-Hungarian Empire, and using a lot of those grapes that were planted in that era, from Grüne Veltliner to Blaufränkisch to it, etc. So really good terroir, depending where. We have some volcanic soil there, also like to the classic like clay and limestone type of terroir as well. Slovakia, I mean, like you cannot. I was just in a wine fair in when was that? Like 10 days ago or something, 2 weeks ago in Tabor in Czech Republic, and you cannot believe how many wines are there. Like how many wines? Like they're a million years ahead of Croatia in terms of like how many. We have like literally the wines we import are able to import. Like half of them I like helped made or like brought them like to to the place where they could be imported. Over there is massive rooms of producers working naturally, like 0-0, like like interesting styles, like beautiful labels, everything. There's so much crazy wine they have. So country like that is a very interesting thing, because in Croatia or in Slovenia or in Austria, maybe, or let's relate to Burgundy, or France. You have so much tradition on how wines are made. They are coming to the point on a completely new plateau. They're taking wines and saying like, we want to do this. We don't care if we blend a half maceration with white wine and some wood and like we want to plant vineyards in a mix of different varietals, and we want to do it's really following the climate. It's following the I like the fact that they're listening to that. Their changes are acceptable, and I think that you're seeing wines that are really representation of that. I think some places like can suffer from tradition and long history, such as Burgundy to me, which is like if you go into a 2018 vintage, I'll have to say that I'm tasting 14.5% Pinot Noir with 30-day maceration on it. Like, why would you ever do that? Because the tradition, somebody's grandfather telling you to do that. This is absolutely insane. There's no point to do that. It tastes like Syrah. So nobody in Slovak Republic will do that. Because they're listening to what they're young. They're like, they want to be. They're drinking wines they're drinking wines as a part of like drinkability. That's their culture. Not somebody telling them how to do it. So I think this is something that why these wines are interesting, and how they're working, and really like being very open to something new, everywhere there. I think they're really breaking through with stylistically, mentally, and they're now coming to the point where they're working with, there were a lot of old vineyards from Soviet Union. They were planted there, so luckily, they had some of that remaining, but a lot of them got planted like Slobodné. They planted, in the early 90s, and the vines are now respectably old, and every year, we're talking about 30-year-old vineyards now, the wines that are just in perfect form, so the region is fascinating for sure.
Okay, cool. And then Slobodné specifically, how do they work?
Well, Slobodné is interesting. I mean, they're organic certified since maybe since 2015. They are a really diverse group. There are two couples that work, one lesbian couple and the sister. One of the sisters married another guy, and they're like really like hip family, and they took over a large, kind of like cooperative that was taken from them after in the communist era. Huge place, like maybe like I think 30 to 40 hectare domain total, growing from tobacco to grain to vines. Under vines, there's about 17 hectares in total. And since we have started buying, they're fully selling, they're fully vinifying the 17 hectare. We have become their biggest buyer in the world. And when we started working with them, and they really went to capacity. Before that, they were selling in some grapes to other producers. But they came back in the 90s after, communists, they repossessed the land back. And this is just an enormous farm with like this large halls of, communist era type facilities with statues like some, communist leaders and things. It's really a really cool place. But they work with some of the interesting grapes there, like Deviner, which is a crossing of Gruner and Devin, and things like like Ali Bernet, which is Alicante Boucher and Cabernet with Sauvignon, which is a part of the communist era that was idea to have this full rich bodied reds that would grow in they'll be growing in this cooler climate. And they are very experimental winery. They work with every year. I mean, they drive me nuts kind of because they change style every year, and then they're like price how the wines taste, which is nuts. So a lot of times the wines will all of a sudden be cheaper. Like that last year the wines dropped in prices because they didn't use so much oak on certain wines, and they managed, which is kind of like sincere and fair. And then like they see like they have to manage a wine through an oak program, and they have to put a lot more work into it. They're like, well, this will charge €1 more, but fair enough. So they have a lot of wine. They produce many cuvées. A lot of them are like, I think they've also really their quality level. I don't know what you work with, so maybe we can go through that.
What is with, let me look that up, but what is with the image on their labels, the guy with the rooster head?
Oh, that is like the old, I forget, people always ask me that. I didn't answer that question in a very long time. That was like the old sign of the I think the grandfather's winery legacy that had to do with that. So they carried the tradition with that, and also with the 3 boxers. That was like part of like the old labels they've had before the communist era of the old estate. That has something to do with that. So they kind of like carried on that.
Okay, so it's just like a family character.
Yeah, exactly.
So the wines that we have in stock are things that are a little bit older vintages. We haven't reordered in a while, but we have, okay, so there's 5, I think. Yeah, Liz, do you want to jump in? Sorry, did you say you had a question? Oh, no, I thought I heard something. Never mind. Okay, so the things we have the most of are the Meili Major red wine from 2017. Or on Zista white wine. Those 2 we have the most of, and then also the Vronsky Blanc from 2018.
Cool.
But I see what you mean about making a lot of cuvées, because I'm looking at the list that I tasted and it doesn't match up with anything we've carried. Very few things match.
Yeah. So there's a lot of wine.
I did have a question. You were clairvoyant. I didn't say anything, but on next week, well, I was thinking about doing kind of exploring all of these 2 wineries, your winery and Slobodné, at a restaurant next week. And so this is very timely with what we have left in stock. And then I'm also curious to know what we can order behind that when we get some people on board.
Okay, so we have new vintages of these wines. The Meyer has a new label. It is just called Meyer now, because it used to be Mali Meyer, and they changed that to Meyer only now. And it has a really cool label. It's a family picture of all of them, and it's tasting great. So I don't have the old Meyer anymore, but it's the same concept of the same blend, just a new vintage. Just the bottle looks different, and I think much better. So so you can definitely sell that. Just a second, I lost you. And then which other wine you said also?
Ooh.
Orangista? No.
Orangista white.
Orangista is basically the basic level Pinot Gris they have, which is just not aged in wood. Cutis Pinot Terre is the other wine they do out of Pinot Gris, and it's aged in small barrels and with longer maceration. I think Cutis Pinot Terre is it's about 8 days. I mean the Orangista is about 8 days, but it's super orange because it's Pinot Gris, and it's fantastic. I have some in stock right now. You can definitely go behind it if you talk to Tony. I think there's about 40 cases left of that.
What's the name of that one again?
Orangista.
Okay. Oh, Orangista is the one that you were just talking about that has maceration.
Correct.
Okay, every year.
Every year it's orange. Orangista basically means orange wine, and that's what they're calling it, like or orangey, like. So it's really like their entry level orange wine, and it's always macerated Pinot Gris. And they don't use wood on that, so it's all basically done in stainless steel.
Okay, and Vronsky Blanc.
Vronsky is Sauvignon Blanc. It's very, very good wine. That is maybe one of my favorite wines. I don't have that. It's sold out just recently. But yeah, that's a very easy wine to sell. It tastes, it has this short maceration of about 3-4 days, but it doesn't feel like a macerated wine at all. It is just almost like a soak, like just a light soak in to get this kind of enzymes going from the skins slightly. It's not oxidative in any way, and it's a wonderful textured, long Sauvignon Blanc. For a glass pour, there's very few wines out there that are that good and made out of Sauvignon Blanc with, naturally fermented and interesting. And, it's like, to me, we don't have a lot of Sauvignon Blanc that we sell. And to me, the market, like cold climate Sauvignon Blanc, it's a very, very, very good wine to have in your book. Like, I love wines from Muster and Verlich, and those wines are my favorite wines on the planet. And this is kind of like, reminds me a little bit of that, so it's a fantastic wine.
Okay.
I have a question, Kresha. So the order that I sent, it would be tasting kind of pre-Valentine's Day, exploring the Czech Republic, Croatia, and Slovakia, starting with the Vronsky Blanc, moving into the Gendy, the Cuvée Chassa.
Oh, you have that.
Yeah.
So.
And then tasting your Rosé Obex, then the Mousse, and then possibly, the Island Red's done now, but can you talk a little bit about that order, and how if you were to do a tasting with folks, and like if a restaurant were to offer a flight?
Yeah. I think we covered Vronsky, right? Or
yeah, we did.
So we covered Vronsky, Chassa, Jedini Sud. This is literally the winery. The name means one barrel. Jedini means one. Sud means barrel. And this is a young kid that I found through Milan Nestarec. He's a friend of mine, and I love his wines, and he's literally like next door to him in the same village, and he has the wines are made in his father's basement. He's 23 years old and worked with Milan for a little bit. And I went there once, and I was like, I don't know, what do we do with this? This is crazy, there's nothing to buy, but I still bought the wines. It's so little of this. This is the smallest winery I think we work with, and in the entire portfolio. So, the wines are coming from the same soil, same thing, same principles, working same way. And very inexpensive Milan Nestaret type white label wines. So Chasa, Sauvignon Blanc, Chardonnay and Sauvignon Blanc. Like if you want to talk about like where Milan has those. I don't know if you ever had gin tonic from Milan. Like it's very famous Sauvignon Blanc that Nestaret makes. It's very, very expensive wine. I think it's like the most expensive wine he makes. It's like the plot's right next to it. So it's like the troublemaker that Nestaret makes. It's also very expensive. It's Chardonnay. So those are the two plots basically right next to it, fermented together, and they cost nothing. So relative to that, so like that's your sales point right there. Like it's and it's aged in this one barrique of 225 liter. That is it. It's a great wine. And then what do we have next? You said something else? Island Red? I lost you. I can't hear you.
You're muted, Liz.
Yeah. Can
Okay.
you say? Yeah.